Dragons are one of the more alluring creatures in fantasy. It's one that most of us really like, but how do you make sure that your dragon is unique? And where did this fascination come from in the first place? Let's get into it. Hi guys, my name is Jesper and welcome to the Fane of Fantasy. This channel is all about giving you inspiration to master your craft and create fantasy that will truly immerse your audience. I have always loved dragons. The first time I came across them was in the Dragonlance Chronicles, and they were just amazing. I've basically been fascinated by this creature, or perhaps I don't know if you want to call it a monster, but anyway, I've been fascinated by it ever since. So since it's been quite a while since I last did one of these videos with only me on camera, I thought dragons would be a good topic to pick up with. There's been a lot of interviews on the channel for what has, I don't know, probably been something like a month now or something like that. And I do really enjoy having those conversations with my guests. So I hope that you are getting a lot of inspiration out of those videos too. That at least that's kind of the point, isn't it? But dragons then. I want to explore where the dragon came from. And of course, as always, also give you some inputs on possible variations that makes the dragon, should we say, less cliche. First though, the most obvious question is, why do dragons permeate fantasy to the degree that they do? Why do they just fascinate us so? I'll confess my favorite episodes of Game of Thrones are when the dragons gets some screen time. However, we do find dragons dating as far back as the biblical Leviathan. There's also a dragon in Beowulf, then there is Smaug in The Hobbit, and more recently the Hungarian horntail or something like that in Harry Potter, but the list just goes on and on. One could argue that we are in the most dragon-saturated period thanks to Game of Thrones. I picked up that the award-winning fantasy author Patrick Rothfuss said that the problem with dragons is that everyone uses them. So they have become commonplace, and he then went on to say that dragons are cool though. They are iconic. So I have to agree with him there. Dragons are majestic in many ways. They might have started out as mere adversaries waiting for the hero in a cave somewhere, but soon they turned into intelligent great worms that aren't to be trifled with. The stereotypical fire-breathing dragon might be cool, but it's not the same as when they are plotting and lurking in the background. They are majestic, as I said, and perhaps that's why we love them so much. Why don't you let me know what it is that you like about dragons so much? Just type it into the comment section below. I would actually be curious to your reflections on this. But where did the idea of the dragon come from? Tales of dragons are known in many cultures, from America to Europe, across to India and China. But no one knows for certain when or where dragons first entered into the popular culture. These flying serpents dates back to the ancient Greeks and the Sumerians. The ideas of the dragons do vary quite a lot between, say, the European version and the Chinese version, for example, but nevertheless, dragons continues to capture our imagination. The word dragon comes from the ancient Greek word drakonta, meaning to watch, and I guess we can make up our own conclusion as to why dragons typically guard treasures than, who knows, watching the treasures. Many have speculated about the real-life animals that first inspired the legend of the dragon though. So here is a rundown of the most likely ones. Number 1 is dinosaurs, of course. Many archaeologists believe that the myth of dragons originates from ancient people discovering dinosaur fossils and misinterpreted it for the remains of a dragon. These bones could be 50 feet in length, so it's quite easy to imagine how ancient people would have invented stories as to what beast such bones belonged to. Number 2 on the list are crocodiles. The saltwater and Nile crocodile are the 2 largest reptiles currently living on Earth. It could be that they swam across the Mediterranean to Italy and Greece thousands of years ago. At least evidence do suggest that in ancient times some Nile crocodiles did live on the northern side of the Mediterranean. They can grow up to 20 feet in length, so once again, it's understandable if this has led to stories about dragons. Bear in mind that in European myths, dragons are often depicted as reptiles. How about whales as the 3rd on the list? Far-fetched? Maybe not, let me explain. In fact, this theory is very similar to that of the dinosaurs. So when skeletons of whales washed ashore, it must have been a mystery to early societies. In the book of Job, for example, the Leviathan, just to get back to that one, is described like a dragon in fantastic detail. The last one I will mention this time around, and number 4 on the list, is snakes. Snakes certainly fit some of the criteria for dragons. Think how many dragons are portrayed as having long serpentine bodies. That's awful lot like a snake. Back in ancient Egypt, there was a deity known as Apep, the serpent of the Nile. Now, I came across a pretty interesting theory put forward by anthologist David E. Jones in his book An Instinct for Dragons. He argues that humans are instinctively afraid of snakes, and therefore the collective human consciousness has invented the dragon over centuries. If that's true, I don't know. I guess nobody does, but it does at least explain how dragon myths have independently arisen across different continents. Let's shift gears here. I promised you some thoughts on how to make dragons feel fresh and interesting. I mean, with them popping up in an endless stream of stories, how do we actually make better dragons? Well, in terms of appearance, you can play with the dragon size, for example, make it either smaller or bigger than what your audience would have expected. This might be a classic, but you can also, of course, change the color of the scales. I know that's something we are probably already familiar with, that it's not kind of a unique idea, so to speak, but looking into the way it breathes fire, perhaps it's or its claws being different from what you might expect, or how about its wings being different in shape or material, so to speak. That might be other ways to make it a bit more unique when it comes to appearance. Another approach could be to change the mythology around the dragons, change why they are here and why they act the way that they do. That's certainly fertile ground to think out of the box. Above all else, focus on the small details. At the end of the day, that's what is going to make your dragon feel real. Its personality, how it goes about what it does, that is where immersion truly comes from. It's been a while since I last gave an update on what I'm working on, and I'm happy to let you know that a lot of things have actually moved forward. Book 3, and that's the final one in the Keystone Bone trilogy, is currently sitting with the editor. And in addition, I've also managed to get the planned non-fiction book on how to write book descriptions done. That one is currently in alpha reading. And then I've also started on a book on getting story ideas. So I expect that this last one is going to be a shorter book though, so it shouldn't take up too much time, because what I'm also have going on at the moment together with Autumn, that's my business partner, we have started developing a course on fantasy world building. It's a lot of work, and it will be quite a while, perhaps 6 months before the modules are ready, but it's really exciting, and it's great fun to get into. If this is your first time here, do make sure to subscribe and learn to master the craft of creating immersing fantasy world settings and characters. I share new videos every single Monday. And hey, don't forget to follow me on social media too. Stay safe out there, and see you next Monday.